What's going on, guys? JSGC here, back again for another video where today we're going to be doing my match reaction of Manchester City's away loss against Nottingham Forest by 1-0 in the Premier League. So before I do crack on with this video, make sure, like always, if you are enjoying the content, do subscribe to my channel. It is free to subscribe. Social media links there in the description if you want to go and follow me on my Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. Email also in the description too if you want to hit me up for any sponsorship for any videos or any general business inquiries. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up on the video. Do let me know your thoughts as well in the comments below. What needs to change at Manchester City ahead of our next game in a week's time against Brighton at home. Do let me know in the comments below. And finally, I want to say a big thank you to today's video sponsor, which is brought to you by SofaScore. SofaScore are going to keep you guys up to date with all the latest football scores, along with the latest match information, lineups, statistics, and so much more. Not just limited to football, it's got all the sports and information covered that you guys love to follow, all in one place, all in one app. It's a free app to download, worthwhile checking out, very highly rated. Do make sure you use the link in the description or the QR code on screen to download the free SofaScore app, and a big thank you to SofaScore for sponsoring this video. So, most frustrating of games this between Nottingham Forest and Manchester City. I kind of hate when I speak about in my previews about what I expect to happen in the game, and what I say I think is going to happen ends up happening, and Manchester City end up being on the end of a loss. Frustrates me even more because Nottingham Forest, it's carbon copy for them of the game that they had at home against Arsenal. They know that they're not going to be able to play Manchester City off the park, so what are they going to do instead? Well, they don't have the legs and pressing and energy in midfield, so naturally they're going to do the only thing that's going to end up being enough for them to maybe pick up some points from this game, and that is to try and defend deep and allow no time or space on the ball for Manchester City. So it's up to Manchester City to be at their creative best, and Plymouth did a real good job on Manchester City last week. Ultimately, it's obviously a home game, and Plymouth are also sitting in the bottom three of the Championship. Nottingham Forest aren't Plymouth Argyle. This is going to one of the most difficult places on the road of the season. Nottingham Forest having an outstanding season led by a brilliant manager in Nuno Espirito Santo. So Manchester City have to be at their very, very best to be able to win this game. We've got to be at our creative best. You've got to pass and move, lots of movement, lots of forward passing, trying to put Nottingham Forest under pressure because they're going to be man-marking Manchester City, the attack, and try and man-mark them out of the game. Jeremy Doku's not going to get time and space on the ball. Savinho's not going to get time and space on the ball. Phil Foden ends up starting. For me, Omar Marmoush should have been starting ahead of Phil Foden because Phil Foden's form has dropped, and I didn't think he deserved to start this game, and I'd have gone with Omar Marmoush because I feel like Omar Marmoush would be able to pick up some pieces playing just behind the striker of Erling Haaland, because the Nottingham Forest defenders are going to be having their hands full in trying to deal with Erling Haaland, so there may just be a little bit of space for Omar Marmoush to work with. So I'd have gone with him, who's Man City have described themselves as the best player in the Bundesliga this season. It's why they wanted to bring him in and had him on the bench while starting an out-of-form Phil Foden. Didn't really make sense to me, so it doesn't surprise me that Phil Foden didn't really have much of an influence on this game, and didn't click and didn't work for Manchester City. But I think ultimately what susses this game for me, nearly 70% possession for Manchester City, had more shots than Nottingham Forest, yet Nottingham Forest managed to have more shots on target than City, testing Ederson more times than what Manchester City managed to do. Nottingham Forest managed this game better than what City did. They came in with a solid game plan and they knew how to execute that game plan, and Manchester City just quite simply didn't have the answers, and it was a tremendous defensive performance from Nottingham Forest, which is what I was expecting from this game. So all round I was just very disappointed. A lot of pedestrian, slow passing, sideways passing, rather than looking up and looking to try and play the forward passes into players who may have a little bit of space. You've got to be more ambitious with your attacking flair, with your ability to play passes forward, because we've got some tremendous football players who do know how to be able to link up play, who know how to have a tremendous ball retention, who are very good with their creative abilities, yet we just didn't really see this in this game. And for me, it was all about how good Nottingham Forest were at defending rather than how good Manchester City can be in terms of their attacking capabilities. And it was disappointing because I've seen glimpses of Manchester City being brilliant at times this season with their attacking capabilities. I looked at the game against Chelsea and how clinical City were, the game against Newcastle at home as well, and these were just a few weeks ago. And to me, that's what we've got to be looking for. You need that energy, you need that flair, you need that ambition, you've got to have that drive and desire, and I just didn't really see that in this game, and ultimately Manchester City have ended up losing this game. Now, to me, Ederson pulled off a tremendous save in the second half. It's difficult when the team's having so much possession, you've not got too much to do, but when called upon, makes a tremendous save, and I'm not too sure, because it doesn't make sense to me, how Ederson can pull off a tremendous save earlier in the second half, yet let, to me, should be a very straightforward save for a Premier League goalkeeper to make at his near post with that goal from Hudson-Odoi in the final 10 minutes. Hudson-Odoi's got no other place he can put the ball other than at the keeper's near post, and Ederson has his position spot on, he's in the right place, all he needs to do is make the save, and he fumbles it, and it's an error that leads to a goal for Nottingham Forest, a fatal error that Manchester City, to me, we could have had another 90 minutes against Forest at the City ground and we wouldn't have scored another goal. That, to me, is what's gone wrong, along with the blunder that's come in from Ederson, and all round just very disappointing. And I also want to be able to point towards game management, because I said in my preview, this game could end up 0-0, and 0-0 isn't a terrible result for Manchester City, because it would have kept us 1 point behind Nottingham Forest, would have still remained in 4th place, so another point towards Champions League football, and it keeps us interested that should Nottingham Forest drop any points, then Man City are right behind them, ready to take over and go into 3rd place, and you keep things as they were. You're going to be playing teams around you. If you're not going to be winning them games, you make sure that you're not losing them games. And in the final 10 minutes, once we'd taken Nico Gonzalez off and we just slowed the game down and the substitutions kind of took all the momentum away from Manchester City, it should have been a case that 0-0's not the worst result. You see out that 0-0, you take the point and we move on to the next game, because at the end of the day it just wouldn't have been a bad point, and we've not managed to do that. What we don't want to do is lose this game and go 4 points behind Nottingham Forest and have all the momentum now for teams with the chasing pack, with difficult games coming up for City, where we're playing some of the teams around us, and it's a case where in 2 or 3 games time we could have been sealing Champions League football. We could easily find ourselves in 8th or 9th. That's the position that we now find ourselves in, and that game against Brighton is huge, because Manchester City have got to win that game. Lose that game at the Etihad against Brighton, it'll take us outside of the Champions League spots, and we may be struggling to get back into them. So that game now is a huge cup final. It's the most important game of the season as far as I'm concerned. The loss there against Forest can be made up with other results, so it may not end up being that important for City come the end of the season, but these future games that we've got coming up, to me, I look at the schedule, I think a lot of the difficult games are at the Etihad Stadium, the winnable games, we've got to make it happen, we've got to win them games, we've got to be turning up with solid performances, strong defensive performances, strong performances in goal, and making sure we're creating opportunities and being clinical in front of goal, because at the moment, link-up play just not working, far too sideways passing, far too happy to play the safer pass rather than the riskier pass, and not looking forward to trying to play balls forward and trying to score goals, and ultimately scoring goals is what's going to win us football games. And I think City now have got a big decision to make when it comes to their team selection. I'm disappointed not to be seeing the likes of McAtee on the bench. I can see him leaving in the summer because of that. Nico O'Reilly grabs the brace against Plymouth Argyle, doesn't get any minutes in this game. It must be so frustrating being a young player at City, and we're seeing Bernardo Silva get towards the end of his career, Gundogan obviously getting towards the end of his career, De Bruyne getting towards the end of his career, and Pep's coming out and saying he wants to keep the experienced players here at Manchester City. We need the experienced players, and that's going to come at a cost of high quality young players who leave the club and excel at other clubs. That these other clubs end up playing catch-up, and I look at the likes of Morgan Rogers doing really well, and it makes you think what could have been. Cole Palmer's doing very well, Liam Delap's doing very well, and you're just thinking to yourself, these are high-quality young players that City just haven't really given the opportunity to, and they're continuing to persevere with a system and players that's just not clicking and not working, and just continuing to do that game after game after game isn't going to give different results, and it's going to be a very frustrating season. I'm pointing towards we've got to try and scramble as much success from this season, and success looks like getting Champions League football for next season. Gravy, it's extra if we can win the FA Cup. For me, focus is Champions League football, because if we don't get Champions League football, could be very costly in the transition of signing players in the summer, because if Champions League clubs come in for the players that City are after, nothing stops these players saying, I'm not interested, you've not got Champions League football, I want to play for a club playing in the biggest and best competitions, and you're not, and that's a big blow. It could set City back, so they've got to be very careful. Pep's got to be very careful, the players have got to be very careful. I want us to be more driven. Fitness and fatigue, no longer an excuse. You're playing once a week, you've got to make it happen. When you win, it's great. When you don't, a week's a long time to dwell on a result, and so weeks here's a long time for us to dwell on this result going into the Brighton game. They've got to focus, they've got to make it happen, and they've got to make it happen now, because otherwise this won't be a very successful season. It could well end up being a disastrous season. Fine margins, business end of the season, normally when City are at the best, far from the best here. So that's been today's video. Do make sure you leave a thumbs up. Also, don't forget as well to leave your thoughts in the comments below. What can City do different heading into the Brighton game? I'd like to see some of the hungrier, younger players starting, bringing fresh energy and ideas into the team, the likes of McAtee, O'Reilly, even Claudio Echeverri. I'd like to be seeing some more of these players. Certainly, if they're not going to be starting, they're making sure that they're on the bench and they're getting minutes to try and make a difference, rather than just bringing on old, tired legs and the same old, because the same old isn't working. We can all see that. Also, don't forget as well to subscribe if you're new around here. It is free to subscribe. Social media links in the description if you want to go and follow me on my Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. Email also in the description too. If you want to hit me up for any sponsorships for any videos or any general business inquiries, then do go and check out today's video sponsor, which is brought to you by SofaScore. And I'll see you all again real soon for the next City video. So I've been JSGC. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope everyone is safe and well. Peace. Ciao for now.